예, 여러분 안녕하십니까? 2023 G 플러스 G 플러스와 협회 공동 미니 세미나 진행을 맡은 한국풍력산업협회 최덕환 대외협력 실장입니다. 예, 먼저 오늘 금일 세미나의 주요 내빈을 우선 소개를 좀 드리도록 하겠습니다. 오늘 행사를 준비하는데 많은 도움을 주신 한국풍력산업협회 최우진 대외협력 부회장님, 그리고 글로벌 G 플러스 해상풍력 안전보건 협회의 카렌님이 참석을 해주셨습니다. 오늘 행사는 글로벌 G 플러스 해상풍력 안전보건 협회의 소개와 함께 그 해외에서 있는 그 안전이나 보건과 관련된 사고 사례 등과 함께 여러 가지 다양한 이슈들을 함께 나누는 자리입니다. 오늘 행사에 앞서 환영사가 있겠습니다. 한국풍력산업협회 최우진 대외협력 부회장께서 일단 환영사를 해주시도록 하겠습니다.
안녕하십니까. 저는 한국풍력산업협회 대외협력 부회장을 맡고 있는 최우진이라고 합니다. 우선 이렇게 그 해상풍력 보건안전 세미나에 와주신 여러분들 환영하고요. 그리고 G 플러스 관계자분들께 감사 말씀을 드립니다. 지금 작년만 해도 가뭄, 폭우, 홍수 등 이상기후 현상이 450건이 넘어간다고 하는데요. 매년 급증하고 있습니다. 이렇게 심각해져 가고 있는 기후 위기에 대처하기 위해서는 가장 많은 온실가스를 배출하는 에너지, 전력 생산에 있어서 탈탄소화가 시급한데요. 이를 위해서 대한민국도 2050년까지 탄소 중립을 하기로 계획을 세우고 있고, 일단 단기 목표는 2030년까지 재생에너지 이행 비율을 20.5%, 그리고 2030년까지 21.6%, 그리고 2036년까지 30.6% 재생에너지를 이행을 해야 됩니다. 이 이행 과정에서 해상풍력은 2030년까지 14.3기가와트, 그리고 2036년까지 26.7기가와트를 설치를 해야 됩니다. 근데 해상풍력이라는 것이 워낙 환경적으로 챌린징한 그런 그 바다 환경에서 중장비를 다루는 것이다 보니까 굉장히 보건 안전 관련해서 많은 주의가 필요합니다. 그래서 저희 이번 기회를 통해서 앞으로도 계속 G 플러스와 한국풍력산업협회가 글로벌 해상풍력 사업에서 있었던 여러 가지 보건 안전 환경 관련 경험을 공유를 하고, 그리고 우리나라가 해상풍력을 앞으로 추진을 함에 있어 어떻게 미리 더 잘 안전하게 준비를 할 수 있을지 논의를 하고, 그리고 배우는 자리가 되기를 기원하겠습니다. 고맙습니다.
예, 최우진 부회장님 좋은 말씀 감사합니다. 예, 금일 행사는 모두 G 플러스의 캐런님이 진행을 하십니다. 우선 G 플러스의 글로벌 해상풍력 안전보건 협회에 대한 소개가 있겠고요. 그 다음에 G 플러스의 익시던트 리포트, 즉 해상풍력 사고 사례와 비춰서 안전 및 보건 사항 등에 대한 설명이 있도록 하겠습니다. 끝으로 Q&A 시간이 있습니다. 발표 중에는 여기 현장에 계시는 분들이 손을 들고 소속과 성함을 말씀하신 다음에 질문을 해주시면 될 것 같고요. 온라인에 있는 팀즈를 통해서 지금 한 50여 분 정도가 참여를 하고 계신데, 이분들은 질의를 주시면은 이메일과 소속이나 성함을 함께 주시면은 저희가 별도로 또 카렌님과 대화를 하면서 또 답변을 드릴 수 있는 또 그런 자리를 갖도록 하겠습니다. 그 온라인 채팅창으로도 발표 중에도 계속 이제 질의를 좀 올려주실 수 있는 거는 마찬가지입니다. 다만 그 답변에 대한 것들은 이제 오늘 이제 행사 후에 별도로 이메일로 안내를 드리겠다고 하는 점 다시 한번 안내를 드리겠습니다. 예, 그럼 G 플러스의 카렌님을 이제 모시도록 하겠습니다. 카렌님 나오셔서 이제 발표를 좀 진행해 주시기 바랍니다. 예.
Sorry, I'll just take it. Hi everyone, welcome to today's event. I'm Karen Shao. I'm the APA representative for G+. And before I start my presentation, I would like to first do a quick announcement. The first one is the most important one, is the safety induction part. I know many of you are actually participating online, but please take a look around of your environment, making sure that you are safe. And for those who are here with us on site, the fire extinguisher is actually just outside the door, and the access of course is through the door. And in case of fire or any kind of emergency, please take the left turn, and then you will go straight and see the main stairs and take the stairs to the outside of muster point. And the other thing is that we'll briefly talk about how we conducted the session today. I think a lot of you are actually listening to the Korean interpreter at the moment. So this event today, whether on site or actually on Teams, will be fully conducted in Korean by our interpreter. So for those of you who want to raise your question after the event in the QA time, please leave your marks in the Microsoft checkbox, and we will try to check it as often as we can. But in case we didn't really get to answer your questions, please feel free to contact me or contact G+. The information of emails or address will be shown at the end of the sessions so that you can take a look. So now I'm going to start with my presentation, and today I will mostly introduce to you what G+ is and what we do, and also to share with you some of the key intake from our incident data report. So the first is, of course, why is there an organization such as G+, and why do we need to look into health and safety issue in offshore wind? So this is a slide which is actually from a lot of news clips over the years. In the early stages of offshore wind developing, even in Europe, we see a lot of incidents happening in the construction of the wind farms, which caused the developers and also the governments a little bit of concern. Why is there so many things happening? Why is there so many injuries, fatalities? And so the developers, they came together and set up a platform, which is this organization called G9. We started with 9 members coming from the wind farm operators and developers, and also OEMs such as Vestas, Siemens Gamesa, and GE. So over the years, G9 sort of expanded itself to a lot of members, and now we're called G+. And as I was saying, G+ is mainly by the wind farm developers and operators all over the world. As you can see, we have around 13 or 12 full members at the moment. Total Energy just become a full members, and we have around 20 associate members. So if you're familiar with offshore wind market, you can see that a lot of them are actually international players in the market. But over the years, especially in the past few years, we started to get more associate members, which is smaller, but which actually simplifies our aim in developing in different regions. For example, end of last year, we have 2 associate members, which is not really international, but still quite big in the region. That is Equus and Vina Energy joining us G+ as the members. So I hope that this means that G+ and also the aim for working for health and safety is actually expanding outside of Europe into Asia Pacific and also into Americas. So I'm actually gonna go to this one before we go back to the last one. So the operation of G+ is based on the power of data. We collected data from our members, whether it's incident data from the wind farms or the data from your everyday practice on how to do your work properly. So collecting all the data, meaning that we translate them into our annual incident data reports, and then we put together good practice guidelines for the industry and also for the reference of the regulators. Sorry. And then we also held Safe by Design workshop, which is annually, and each year we will pick out one big topic for the industry to discuss. And it actually allows, say, our members and also the industry to start thinking about health and safety issue at very early stages of the wind farm development. For example, the design of the construction, the design of the wind farm. So a lot of people would probably think that, you know, for, say, regulators or for a lot of the operators, the issue of looking into safety in the traditional normal sense only started when the construction starts. But that's actually wrong, because during the design of the wind farm, if you do not take into account the safety concern of your wind farms, then you're missing out a lot of opportunity to actually design a really good work procedure or workflow for your wind farms. So that's why we keep on emphasizing the importance to actually look into health and safety as early as possible. So it should be throughout the entire life cycle of your wind farm rather than just in construction or in operation. So lastly, there's the toolbox, which is a learning application supported by the Energy Institute. So for Toolbox, it's very similar to how we collected incident data. It's also a data collection database, but it's more than offshore wind. So it actually collected data from all other industry, especially those major ones which we deem to be very thoughtful and have that kind of knowledge sharing experiences that should be shared with the industry. So going back to the previous slides, this is the structures of G+. Like a lot of the industrial organization, of course, we operate with our board members and also with our member representative. And most importantly, the daily operation of G+ is divided by different kind of working groups. And all these working groups, they could be categorized by regions, for example, Europe, Asia Pacific, and also the Americas. And they could also be divided into different working topics. So that is the work stream listed here. So for the work streams, it could be for a different specific work procedure that you will encounter in everyday work in your offshore wind projects. For example, it could be lifting, it could be manual handling, it could be small vessel management, and it could be working within, I feel like I have to say that I'm still a bit sick, so that's why I would keep on coughing a little bit, but please forgive me for that. But anyway, so like, for example, working within confined spaces and all that. And now within the Asia Pacific focal group, we actually have different kind of chapters set up for individual countries. So right now we have Taiwan, Japan, and recently we just started our Korea group. We actually just had a meeting yesterday to discuss the work the working target for the group. So as I was saying, G Plus started our APEC focal group in 2019, and then we started in Taiwan, but we expanded outside of Taiwan to Japan. And this year, last month, we decided to set up our Korean chapters because we see a lot of interest and also a lot of requests coming from the Korean markets that they want to learn more about offshore wind and they want to learn more about health and safety issue in offshore wind. So the idea of working the regional group is that we would take a look into the regional outlook of the market. So like I said, right now we're working on 3 markets, but in the future, say if there's more opportunity to work in Vietnam, Australia, or Philippines or other countries, if that's our interest for our members, then that's also a target for us to work there in the future. So as a lot of people know that Korea is actually at the development stages of offshore wind, which is rather new and rather early stages. So the issues that might be encountered here in Korea could be a lot different from the issues that may be accounted for in Taiwan, where Taiwan has already several operating and also constructing projects going on. But still, there are still a few that is still in very development early stages. So these kind of stages and this kind of different position in the market would have different focus and different issues that we should talk about. And that is why earlier I was talking, we have chapters for different countries so that we can work on specific issue that would happen in that country. So for the working of these regional groups, of course, is to discuss the major issue, the major concerns for safety in their projects in that region. But we also hope that through collaboration with a wider stakeholder, for example, today with KWEIA, or in the future, perhaps with the regulators of Korea, that we're able to tackle more major issues regarding health and safety, or even to actually share our experiences internationally to see if there's anything that would be a lesson learned for the local regulations. So basically, all the operation I was just talking about is how we establish ourselves in Taiwan. We held several kind of events and workshops, and also we have promotion on, say, magazines and medias, lecturing people or sharing people what are the concerns, what are the major issues in safety in offshore wind. And we also established our relationship with the Taiwanese regulator, that is the Taiwan OSHA, the Occupational Health and Safety Administrations. Through the collaboration and through this kind of outreach with stakeholders, G Plus has started to gain ourselves some kind of reputation or some kind of knowledge in the industry in Taiwan already. But again, Taiwan is just one of the examples. So G Plus is still trying to do it here in Korea, and same thing with how we did it in Japan, so that overall the industry would have a broader knowledge of the work G Plus does and how do we actually improve the health and safety in offshore wind. So basically, that was the overall introduction for G Plus and what we do. And now we're going into probably the biggest part of the event today to share with you a little about the incident data report G Plus published, which, by the way, the recent report was published in June this year. So before I go into the details, I have a few definitions that I will want to emphasize here. And I will tell you a little bit about why do I have to do this definition and why is it so important. The main reason was because I'm hoping through today's sessions, I will provide you a way to actually utilize and to interpret the data in G+ report. I forgot to mention earlier in the introduction part of G+ that everything G+ does, all the good practice guidelines or the results of our Safe by Design workshops, including our annual data report, can be seen on the G+ website. So the aim for G+ and the whole purpose of G+ is that health and safety is so important. It should be a knowledge and information shared by the wider public rather than just within our members. And of course, we will still very appreciate all the efforts coming from our members because they are the foundation of G+, and they are the foundation of the documents that we produce. But again, safety should come first. And talking about safety, it's about how to really raise the awareness of about safety. So talking about it more, I hope is the way to actually put us in the safer kind of position for working and actually to improve ourselves. So coming back to the definitions, the first one is the not really the most important one, but this is like the subject of the whole report is that the data that you will see later in the slide and also in the incident data report is actually collected by our members. So it's collected from the wind farm operation incidents. So the second one, we're still at the first line of the definition. The reason why we call it incident rather than injuries was because later you will see in the report and also in my slides, the data we collected is not just injury data, it also includes asset damage and safety hazards and also near miss, which is incident that could happen but did not happen. So the reason why we use incident rather than injuries was because these actually give you a broader sense of what could happen. So the definition of injuries is probably more narrow if we just look at what really happens, because what could have happened also implies a lot in how can we improve on safety concerns. So that's the whole point of calling this incident data rather than injury data. And I know this is probably a lot different from, say, the injury data that the COSHA were collected or the injuries that a lot of the HSE manager are required to report it back to the COSHA system. So I would like to make this clear to all of you. So the collection of the incident or after we collected the incident, of course, is to categorize the incidents, and the categorizations of the incidents can be divided by 4 types of categorizations. And the first is, of course, we can categorize the incident by the degrees, whereas we could also call it the consequences or the results of the incidents. So that is what I was talking about. It goes from asset damage to safety concerns to near miss to, say, fatality. That is the worst kind of incident, of course, to lost working day injuries, to restricted working day injuries, and also to a minor one, which is first aid emergencies. And the second one is that we could also categorize the incident by the site types of the offshore wind farms. So the site type of offshore wind farm here, we're talking about which stage that offshore wind project is. Is it in development, or is it in operation, or is it in construction? So actually there should be 4 because there's also is it in decommissioning. But as a lot of the wind farm hasn't really reached the stage for decommissioning yet, so most of the data we collected is actually either from development, construction, or operations. So just to be clear, a wind farm or an offshore wind project could only be at one stages of this categorization, right? It could either be in development or it could either be in construction. It couldn't be in development and construction because if it goes into construction, then that would be in constructions. So that is the definition here. And the third way to categorize the incident is to categorize by the incident area or the location of the incidents. So here we have onshore, offshore vessel, wind turbines, and other. So other is the one that the members, when they submit the data, can specify if it's not in one of the above situations. So I hope by now a lot of people probably have the kind of question that we're talking about offshore wind farm. Why is there a onshore categories here in the incident areas? But the onshore of the incident area actually means that if it's onshore civil works, so the onshore civil works could be all kind of civil works or all kind of construction, including, say, the substation, warehouses, or substation nearby areas, or the roads. So that's why we have a onshore part. And same with if it's happening within the harbor, on the buoy, or sorry, or is it happening on site offices or warehouses? That's also the onshore part of the location. And offshore and vessel, why is it separated? Of course, it's offshore means offshore civil works. So it could be, say, on the transition piece on the deck, and everything that's happening on the vessel would be classified in the vessel area. And of course, wind turbine say for itself. And lastly, the categorization could be by the work process. So the work process is a little bit like how I earlier talked about. We have different working groups on specific working topics or work process. So in G+, we listed 35 kind of work process. For example, the first one is probably going to be the most common one during development phases, that is the business traveling, or it could be diving operations or manual handling and machinery operation, etc. So now that we do the definition of the G+ data, we can now go into details. So again, I will urge everyone today to actually go back and look at G+ website because, for example, a lot of the slides I'm using today is actually taken from the annual report and also from screenshot of the website. So there's a lot to look into on our website if you're interested. And so we were talking about there were a lot of incidents over the years, and that is why there's this organization called G+, and exactly how much of the incident, how many incidents are we talking about here? I would give you a rough idea. This is the overview of the safety stats from 2022. And as you can see, from 2016 to last year, 2022, the change of numbers and also the change of working hours has listed here. And you can see that for the two rates, the total recordable injury rate and the lost time injury frequencies, the definition is actually here if you're interested. So one of them is the one that's for lost time injury. So that's the major one that is accounting for the lost time injury and also fatality. But again, as you can see, the fatality rates in incident report by G+ is actually 0 from the beginning to last year. And if you have a very well-connected connection in the offshore wind market, you will know that that's probably not true. But the reason why there's 0 fatalities in the G+ data, was because, again, all the data come from the wind farm operated by our members. So it could mean that we don't really cover every single wind farm globally, which is a pity, but I would say it does not hurt the purpose of looking into the data G+ has, because we do have a big enough of database which should allows you into seeing the trend and seeing the specific details. So another thing I would like to emphasize, if you actually want to compare the two rates to, say, domestic kind of database, from my perspective, I would say that that kind of comparison, or even the comparison to oil and gas industry globally, may not necessarily be the best way to look at the data. And the reason why I'm saying this and the reason why I think of this was because I spent a lot of time, I think about 10 or 15 minutes, talking to you about the definition of the incident data G+ collected. And the definition differences and how you really calculate your statics differently could actually influence a lot on the outcome of your data and on how you interpret your data. So I would say I would urge everyone today to look at the G+ incident data in the way that we are comparing the numbers with the previous years. So say we are comparing the 2022 data to 2021 or 2020 to see, we have a rather similar kind of pool of collecting the data of the wind farms, of course. I have to say there's increase on the numbers of wind farms because more and more wind farms are going into, say, development or going to construction. That would affect the pool collection of the data. But again, the basics, they should be similar. So the idea to compare the data should be comparing with previous years and to see if we improved ourselves, if we did better, or if we did worse throughout the years. So comparing, again, I would like to emphasize, comparing to other industry on saying whether offshore wind did right or did wrong, I don't think that's the way to actually improve ourselves, because if you feel like offshore wind is safer from any other industry, then that could give you the pride into not really looking to improve yourself. So in this one, you can see that there's only the injuries part of the incident. So the next one, this is actually all the data collected throughout the years, and all the data here I was saying because it includes the asset damage, hazard, and near miss, which is the incident part of the whole incident. And you can see that throughout the years, there's actually some increase and decrease on some of the incident and some of the categories. But if we take it down into kind of break it down into specific countries. So this is the country overview for 2022, and you can see that again, we don't really have the data from every single wind farm or every single countries in the kind of globally situation, but in Asia Pacific now we do have the data in Taiwan feeding back to our incident data report, of course, because Taiwan is the country that has the most kind of construction and development wind farm at the moment. And if you look at it, Taiwan actually comes second in terms of the total incident numbers and also the total working hours in 2022. And of course, the numbers of working hours and number of incidents in different countries that could, again, go back to the development of that country in offshore wind, depending on how many wind farms we have, our members have operating or constructing or developing in their area. So for the moment, how about let's just look at the top two. That is the UK, where G Plus is actually based, and also Taiwan. So if you look at the total number of incidents and total number of working hours, you can see that they are the top two, and they have significantly higher numbers than rest of the country, of course. But if you look at, for example, the two rates that we talked about, the total recordable injury rate and also the lost time injury rate, you could see that Taiwan and UK actually had a very similar performance in the total recordable rate. But when it comes to LTIF, that is the one that involves fatality and lost working day injuries, you could see that Taiwan has actually a fewer numbers than the UK, which means that Taiwan has fewer injuries that is classified as higher potential or higher risk kind of injuries, including lost working hours and lost restricted working hours. And again, because we didn't really collect any fatality kind of incidents till last year, so that's why fatality is 0. This is, again, to remind you all. So a very interesting thing for the Taiwan incident numbers, which is not really shown on the slide here, but if you actually go into the website and click on the individual kind of data, you could notice that Taiwan had total number of 185 incidents last year in 2022, but the total numbers of incidents collected in Taiwan since we have Taiwan in the report in 2018 is actually 292. So since 2018 to 2022, Taiwan has around 290 something incidents, and 60% of them actually comes from last year, which actually simplifies that Taiwan has a lot of things going on last year, but that was also because we have a lot of construction site ongoing, and some of the site also went into operation, say, earlier this year. So the previous slides, as I was saying, they're either from global kind of statics and also from all three development site status. Sorry, there's a teeny arrow in the slides, but I would just share with you what is missing here. So on the right side and above, there should be a work hour per site type, where we divided the working hours documented in all the years into 3 site types. So the 3 site type is what I was saying earlier. It's either construction, development, or operation and maintenance. And of course, as a lot of people can imagine, of course, a lot of incidents happen during construction period. So the documented working hours in 3 sites, it's actually development is the least one, which is only about 1/7 of the entire working hours, and leaving the construction site have the most working hours, of course. Again, by the way, if you don't know, this slide for today will be shared with you on KWEIA's website. And if you want, we could also send you this through emails. So if you look at the chart in this slide, this is the data that we taken out from only, so this is only the data from all the development sites over the years. As you can see, if we're going back to this one, right? If you have a quick sense of the memory of the numbers, this is not that many, right? This is compared to the previous one, the number is very small. But as I was saying, that was part of the reason, of course, was because the documented working hours in development side is less. And also, it is also common to actually see development phase as the phase where we have least safety concerns, or which is probably compared to construction site is safer. But as you can see over the years, we actually have one lost workday injury documented, and then a lot of the documented incident data or injury data was actually from it's actually from some minor kind of incident, or the incident that is for near miss or asset damage. And then this is actually for all three site types, but it's actually divided in the chart. As you can see, we were talking about one of the categorization of the incident is by the work process. So if we see, if we actually compare the numbers of incident collected by the categorization of work types, we can see that the first one is the lifting operation. And where is it happening the most often? Of course, it's during construction period of time. So a quick go around on the top 10, it's lifting, manual handling, assets, electrical system, vessel operations, and rest. So I think the top 5 should do just enough. So again, this is actually global data, and for the reason why I have to mention that was because the next one is actually the data in Taiwan. So the data in Taiwan in 2022, the first, the top one incident collected by the numbers is also lifting operations. And as you can see, it goes lifting, vessel operations, civil works, manual handling. Manual handling, I think I remember that was second in the global data. So you can see that the trend on work process, or the categories of work process in the Taiwan data and globally is actually very similar, which brings out the point that, you know, despite the fact that we have a lot of differences in, say, development in different regions for offshore wind, the operation or the construction or the work process of it could still be very similar. So that was 2022. And this is Taiwan's top 15 work process in the past 4 years. Still, you can see before in 2022, lifting was #1, and here over the years is still #2. So the first one is working at heights. I think that's actually something people could guess or imagine when you work for offshore wind. So we've been talking about lifting operation. This is to show you a little bit about how it actually increased in Taiwan over the years. As you can see, last year it was the #1 incident work process in Taiwan, and you can see that it actually increased quite a lot from 2021 to 2022. And again, I know a lot of you today it's probably not really health and safety manager of your company. You could come from offshore wind and all aspect of offshore wind, whether it's development, or you could have experiences in installation. That does not necessarily means offshore wind. It could be onshore or oil and gas and other industry. So I think we if we have to really look into the reason why there's this increase in lifting operation of incident in Taiwan. Of course, as I have been always saying, we have a lot of construction starting in 2022. So that means that a lot of construction, a lot of, say, installation of wind turbines, which could mean that there's a lot of lifting requirements in the work process. So that was probably one of the reasons that have this really high peak in numbers. So coming back to talking about incident in development side, which I think would probably be a very big focus for the audience in Korea, because a lot of your projects is still in development stages. As you can see, in the work process that is related in development stages, of course, the biggest one, or the one that would have the most incident happening, is the survey works. So that means the geo survey, environmental survey, or a meteorological survey happening, whether it's offshore, well, most of them offshore, which goes back to how people kind of think about offshore wind. I think a lot of people think about offshore wind, they feel like the most dangerous part of the offshore wind is, of course, happening offshore on the sea. And that's actually true in the development stages of the project, because most of the activities actually do happen offshore. You have a lot of offshore survey at the moment. So the survey vessels could be a very important part for you to look into during development phases. So if we divided, or if we categorize the incident that is collected in development stages of the wind farms into high potential, and by high potential here, as we were talking about before, because one of the categorization of the incident is to categorize it by the results of, or the consequences of the incidents. So higher potential means that it has a higher potential of becoming, say, fatalities or lost workday injuries. You could see that in 2022, though we do have a very high numbers when we say started in 2018 here. Still, we have actually a lot of increase since 2021 to 2022. And you can see the trend going down and decreases between over the years. Sorry, I kind of want to pause here to create some kind of effect into going next one. If you have already have a glance in the next slide. So I was saying in development phases, or when people think about offshore wind, they would think about the most dangerous place to be on the vessel and also offshore, which can be correct in development sites, as we were seeing in the last slide here, that a lot of it happening in surveys. But now I'm jumping to the one But if we look at the top incident areas, this is the data in Taiwan and from 2018 to 2022. The most numbers actually goes to onshore, and the second one then that's vessel. And sorry. And as you can see, of course, a lot of them are coming from construction period of time. Some of them are from development phases. So I don't know how you would feel about this data, because this actually shows that the safety concerns or safety hazards, the area that we really need to look into, is not just offshore, but also onshore. And I don't know if you remember the definition previously, the definition of onshore and offshore. Onshore, again, is substations or your warehouses, site offices, and also including within the harbor. So if we break it down even more on specific kind of areas rather than just categorize it into onshore and offshore, you could see that the area that has the most incident happening in Taiwan in the past few years still is onshore, but it is onshore civil works, so that could mean the construction for substation, cable, or all the other related civil works kind of issues. So in response to this, G Plus actually collaborated with our sister organization called Safety On working for civil works good practice guidelines and civil work kind of promotions. And the second one, the second highest incident area is still onshore, is the turbine assembly site. And I think this also has a lot to do to relate to we were talking about lifting being one major concern in Taiwan in 2022. And by third, then, of course, it sort of comes back to normal, or it comes back to our imagination on how dangerous offshore wind is, that it comes back to vessel. And by vessel here, we mean jacktop and barge. So vessels that is related to the installation. And again, of course, it would mostly be on construction side. So I think this is the last slide I have on data. Of course, you could see clearly that it is the rates from Taiwan and also from globally. As we were saying, the reason why I want to share this with you and the reason why I want to urge people into looking the incident data was to see if we actually improve ourselves over the year. And one quick and the most easiest way is actually to look at the two rates, the lost time injury frequencies and total recordable injury numbers. So the both rates you can see globally, it's actually decreasing over the years, which I hope means that everyone in the offshore wind industry, we are indeed doing better in terms of working safely and keeping our project safer. So, well, the Taiwan numbers is there, so I kind of have a very difficult time to tell you to neglect that. But if you look at the Taiwan rates for both, of course, for the lost time injury frequency, you could see that it's somewhat still in a decrease or at least at the same level kind of situation. But if you look at the total recordable numbers, again, I like to remind you I was saying the total incident collected in 2022 is actually 60% of the whole incident collected over the years. So which means that last year we have a really high peak in working hours and also in incidents. So that shouldn't be so surprising that the total recordable incident rate in Taiwan last year has a really high peak. But still, if you really look at the numbers, it's actually still, I would say, within the global kind of level of numbers, because it did not really surpass the global rates. That is the orange line. So that's it for the incident data part. Again, I would like to emphasize today, my point to be here with you today to share with you some of the intakes from the G+ data is to first give you the definition, because the definition is actually not listed in the incident data report. So to give you the definition on how we really collected the data and how you can interpret the data if you do want to compare it with other kind of incident database. And the second one is to, I hope to, through this sharing, to give you some interesting idea and to maybe give you more idea on where is the most danger part of offshore wind development. Because as I was saying, the results can be quite different than what you imagined. So coming back, I think we're now at the final part, that is the conclusion of today. I'm not sure how many of you online is actually health and safety manager. I know a lot of you here on site today is in the HSE manager or related professionals. But one of the data or one of the number I didn't really mention in the previous slides, especially in what we did in Taiwan. We've been having a lot of events and workshops in Taiwan since last year. And most of the events we have, the registration numbers, and if we actually look at the title or say the position of our participant, one very interesting thing is that only 30 or 40% of them are actually health and safety professional, which means that 60 or 70, I think probably 60% of them is not related to health and safety aspect. So they came from project development, they came from operation and maintenance, they came from construction. Most importantly, they came from all companies in the industry, so not just developers. They also come from a lot of the important contractors. For example, their vessel company, their fabrication company, or their service providers of the offshore wind industry. So I think the most important question that everybody would ask, and the kind of urgent incentive that have all those 60% of people in offshore wind to come to G+ events or want to learn more about health and safety is that we all want to know, how do we decrease the number of incidents and how do we improve the safety in offshore wind? Because I think one of the phrases that we use most frequently in the industry and also in health and safety is that everybody wants to go to work in one piece and also go back home from work in one piece. We want to remain safe every day. So how do we really do that? How can we really achieve that? Of course, if we go back to the previous slides, we can see that it seems like it is indeed improving. The overall situation for safety in the industry globally seems like really improving. And of course, coming from the data, it's really difficult for us to really pin down the reason why this is happening, because it could be a lot of the reason. It could be the people in the industry are having more experiences which allow them to know how to deal or how to avoid incident happening. It could also be that because the industry at large is adapting safety standards or good practice guidelines from organizations such as G+, or adapting GWO or other kind of safety training wisely, that allow them to have the knowledge and skill sets for safety and health kind of situation. But again, despite the fact that I do want to contribute this effort into the work that G+ do, we hope that there's still a lot of areas and a lot of efforts that needs to be put into the offshore wind market from everyone. So not just from G+, not just from our members, but from everyone, so that we can work together into achieving a safer and healthier working environment and making offshore wind, if we do have to pride ourselves, the safest industry in the world. So I skipped a few slides. Sorry, I kind of want to leave the time for QA. So what would you say are the challenges within the new market or within Asia Pacific? This is actually the results that come from a really simple survey we did in March, or is it in February? But anyway, it's earlier this year, where we asked a lot of people in the industry. So it's a survey that we share it online and with our contacts so that people could fill it in anonymously. We asked the question, what do you think is the safety concerns or the major safety concern in offshore wind, especially in Asia Pacific region? So the results, a lot of them are talking about a lot of the workers, they may not have enough of skills or knowledge to how to work properly. But then again, a lot of the answer actually relate to another part of the soft skill set part, that is the mindset or the safety culture of the Asia Pacific region, that we don't have the proper mindset to establish a safety culture. And that could be something because as I keep on saying in other events, we have a lot of safety training facilities. We have a lot of safety training standards, and I believe it is the same in Korea. You have a lot of safety trainings already. These facilities has already been doing something for you to establish your skill set and to establish your knowledge. But the other part, how do we really establish this culture? How do we really do the mindset? How do we set up the platform or the communication channel for people to talk about safety, for people to share their experiences or their concern for safety? And I hope that would be something that G+ can help, not just in Korea, but globally. And I think that kind of platform or this kind of transparencies and this kind of communication is very important if we have enough of people involved. And this is why I have to thank again for KWEIA's support for the events, because finding someone that share the same value as you do is very important in promoting the value that G Plus want to promote. So lastly, I want to emphasize again, I was saying most of the participants from our events is actually not just health and safety manager, but also people coming from all aspects of offshore wind. That is because, at least from what I see, from what I feel about what G Plus do and what G Plus can provide, is that all the safety standards and all the safety culture or the mindset or the transparency that we just talked about, it's not just for your health and safety manager. It's for everyone in your company. It's for everyone in the industry. So health and safety, it should be for all. It's not just for your health and safety manager. And this is the only way that your health and safety manager can really do their job. If everyone in your company, everyone in the business have the proper idea on safety, that's when we can really eliminate or decrease the number of incidents. So here's the contact information. As I was saying, G Plus website have a lot of information, and basically all the documents or the good practice guidelines that we have is on our website. So the QR code, if you're here, is actually directly linked to our website. We are also very active on LinkedIn. So if you could follow us on LinkedIn, we basically share all the things that we've been doing, the work streams updates, and also the events that we're having. And if you have any further questions you would like to ask, feel free to reach out to me or to G Plus General website. And I think we have a few questions in the chat. I'm gonna go to them now. Okay, so there's one question on Teams. I'm gonna take my computer. So thank you for asking the question. So he was asking about what do I think is the other reason why the incident increased rapidly in Taiwan, except for increased working hours. And is there any lessons learned we can have? For example, new working method, load, supervision, etc. So of course, I would, again, coming from the data and not like analyze the data itself, it's really difficult to pin down the reasons, right? All the reason I was saying is more like generic kind of idea of why this is happening, and same with why I would like to take credit for I would like to take credit for G Plus for decreasing the numbers globally, but well, it's really difficult to really say that, but I'm hoping that was the case. So yes, of course, I think the increased numbers of incidents means that we have a lot to learn from. Regarding the work process, and is there new methods to work on it. So for example, in the previous slides, we see a lot of lifting incident happenings. So that means that it could be that the current way we work on lifting is problematic, or it could be insufficient, which means that we might need to adapt, say, new equipment or new ways of working on lifting. So that gives us the index on how can we improve ourselves, of course. So lifting is, of course, just one of the examples. So going back to, say, because he mentioned about law and supervision kind of issues, I think that is very similar in a lot of the country in Asia because we have very new offshore wind market, right? And so the importance is that we really don't have enough of regulations to actually protect or to regulate work process or your working environment. So if I'm going back to the slides previously. So because a lot of people in the safety concerns also talked about regulation kind of issues that we don't have the regulatory framework in Asia or in Asia Pacific in the new markets. That could cause a problem. But in response to that, of course, one of the aim or one of the purpose that G Plus has been working on is to actually share our experiences, share our good practice guidelines, whether it's with the regulators or with the industry at large. So I hope we are running a little bit late out of time, but I hope that answers part of your questions. And I feel like right now I should open up the floor for everybody on site.
예, 혹시 질문 있으시면. 잠시만요.
네, G 플러스 이제 올해 가입을 했고요.
Sorry.
저는 에키스의 안전 총괄을 하고 있는 장범준 상무이고요. 저희가 에키스 G 플러스에 이제 올해 가입을 했습니다. 그래서 어제 또 저희 G 플러스 한국 포컬 그룹 미팅을 했는데 이제 오피셜하게 이제 저희 한국 로컬 포컬 그룹이 이제 창설이 되었습니다. 그래서 이제 앞으로 KWEIA와 어떤 협력을 좀 해야 될지에 대해서도 내부적으로 좀 이렇게 회의도 많이 했는데 캐런 씨는 앞으로 저희가 이제 KWEI와 어떻게 협력을 해 나가고 저희 한국 시장에서의 옵쇼 윈드에서 안전 사고를 줄일 수 있는 방법에 대해서 개인적으로 어떻게 생각하고 계시는지 그런 부분에 대해서 좀 나눠 주셨으면 좋겠습니다.
So, thank you for the question. So I think what are the things we can do for me? Personally, I think during this development phase of offshore wind, because in the development phase, we first don't have much projects going on. Secondly, don't have the regulation needed. So the reason why I keep on talking about safety culture in my conclusion today is that I think for me, in this development period of time, it's not just about developing projects. It's also about how we develop the framework of working in health and safety for offshore wind. So this means that there's the way to really look what we need in Korea in terms of what we need in the legal framework and what we need in, say, the knowledge, the mindset, and the skills framework set up here in Korea. So that goes back to how I keep on sharing in different kind of occasions and events on my point of view of how I see health and safety and how I see we establishing health and safety culture. I forgot to sort of like introduce myself in the beginning of the sessions. A lot of you today probably will say that you're very unfamiliar with health and safety issue or occupational health and safety. So I just want to let you know that I'm not from health and safety kind of expertise background neither. So my point of view or how I interpret this might help you a lot into how you can be involved in health and safety, not just in Korea, but like globally. Again, I think the idea or the thing that we can do is to really learn from each other and to expand our knowledge on what safety is in order for us to really push forward or help the whole industry into becoming a safer environment. And I'm based in Taiwan. I'm from Taiwan. I started with the offshore wind industry in Taiwan. Originally, I was with the public relation department. So in case you don't know, I think that's similar in Korea. A lot of the things that we did in Taiwan is to actually promote the offshore wind industry to the public. So the promotion of offshore wind industry to the public has the purpose first is to let people know more about offshore wind industry. By knowing more, they have less concerns or less confusions that will lead to less objections. So this is the same thing what I have been doing with G+. By letting people know more about safety, about G+, there's the chance to involve more and more people into collaborating with G+, or into devoting themselves in health and safety. So I hope by working with a domestic industrial organization such as KWEIA, I think for me, that's a very big deal because that means that a big association like KWEIA, they're starting to look into the health and safety aspect of offshore wind. And that means a lot to me because that they are a very strong alliances for us here in Korea, and through their members, through our members, I think there's a way to actually work on something and to maybe help the industry grow. So that's my not so short answer. Thank you.
The official question.
Yeah, last one.
Thanks for your kind explanation. I'm from the Cape Winds. I'm in charge of HSC. With a sponsor, we have sponsored with the Ocean Winds and MRP. I just want to ask you one question because our last project in Korea, we're dealing with marine survey, as you know. But as you mentioned, the marine survey had the highest number of instances for development phases. I saw that the 15 instances. You mentioned that 400 increase over the same period last year, which means like a lot. I just want to know that any special reason for this? And second question is, any lesson learned from G+? And the last question is, what can we expect in South Korea from G+? Let's say that there might be some other person, company who want to join this G+.
Yep.
But because we want to know that really make this happen, make this marine survey, safe.
Yes.
Just so, what can you get a support from the G+ in terms of the ensuring this marine survey is safe?
Yes. So the first question, why there's such high increase. Of course, I didn't really had it in the slide today, but it's not also shown on the website. But previously, in my previous event, I counted how many wind farms that is included in the data report. So I would say I think one of the reasons is, of course, the increase of wind farms or wind projects that could cause a lot of kind of incident numbers here. And then, sorry, your second is yes, lesson learned from G+. So the lesson learned from G Plus, that the reason why today, because in the incident data report, you won't see the separation from the data from three sites, construction, development, and operation. So the reason why today I want to share with you the data that is separated and also taken out from the development side was because for the new markets, this should be our concerns, knowing what will happen in development of the projects. And the lesson learned, I would say, is that, of course, I was saying earlier when I was introducing what G Plus do, we have Safe by Design workshop. And as I was saying, a lot of the safety concerns, a lot of the safety protections or mitigation should come from earlier stages as possible, like as early as possible. It has to go in the beginning of the development of the project, including the beginning of your designs, the beginning of your development, everything, every arrangement at the early stages as possible. Because only beginning since then it will be able to actually last through the entire life cycle of the project. So for G Plus, within, for example, within our members group, we now have a developer working groups, which allows our members to have their development teams participated in the meeting to let us know exactly what they need in development phases. What are the things that G Plus could have done but hasn't been doing yet? So by taking account in the opinions or feedback from different group of people, so from, say, project management, project development team, or even in the later days, we also have construction and operation group. By taking account of all this different group of people, we then have the idea of what can we improve and also what are the lesson learned, and if the lesson learned from G Plus is enough, do we need to do more? So that kind of goes back or answers how G Plus can participate more in Korea. Of course, as a industrial organization, we may not be as big as, say, KWEIA by the members' account, of course. But G Plus has been really welcoming and, say, working with everyone in the offshore wind industry. As long as you're interested in health and safety issues. And again, this is the reason why all the things that we do, all the things that G Plus has, basically it's open for public on our website. And I hope that by holding events like today, it's also a way to really work with you guys or giving you the opportunity to know how to work with G Plus, to be involved in the discussion or to be involved in the way to feedback your opinions on how we can work better in domestic markets such as Korea. So this is my answer. And I think we should conclude the event today because we did surpass a little bit the original schedule. So thank you again for being here with me, whether you're on site or online, and listening to me for rambling in the past hours. And again, thanks to KWEIA and thanks to Choreo today for helping with the organizations of the event.
예, 장시간 그 좋은 발표를 해주신 캐런 성님께 다시 한번 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 예, 이후 이제 팀즈에서 올라온 질문들이 또 있는 것 같긴 한데요. 그런 것들은 이제 또 정리를 해서 이제 카렌님께 또 전달을 또 드리도록 하겠습니다. 저희가 그 별도로 이제 질문을 놓치는 게 아니라 시간 관계상 이제 질의가 있는 것들을 정리를 해서 이제 드린다는 말씀 다시 한번 드립니다. 예, 오늘 이 보건 안전에 대한 아주 새로운 이제 시각을 갖고 줄 수 있는 그런 시간이었던 것 같습니다. 이것으로 오늘 이제 G플러스와 협회가 공동으로 이제 주최를 한 미니 세미나는 이제 마치도록 하겠습니다. 끝까지 경청해주신 현장 그리고 온라인으로 참석해주신 모든 분들께 감사드립니다. 다시 한번 인사드리겠습니다. 고맙습니다.